Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Surviving UX podcast. The weather may be getting nicer out there, but our bet is you are still inside staring at a screen. I'm Meg Kramer, and with me, as always, is my co host, Jessamine Edwards. Jessamine, how are you doing?
Oh, Meg, it really can't get any grosser or more stressful than it is right now. I feel like I'm just turning into like a workaholic. Like I'm a 1950s dad basically who's like, "Hey kids, smell you later." And I just come and close the door and ignore my family and work. And like, the dirty dishes are piling up, the paperwork is piling up, the to-do lists are piling up, and I'm like looking outside at the trees and thinking one day I'll take a walk, but not today. And that is pretty much how it's rolling right now. I mean, I come downstairs for meals, I eat them, and I leave the dirty dishes, I leave the children, and I just come right back upstairs. It is nuts. How are you?
Who has time for a walk when
Sure, your
when the dishes and the
family.
paperwork
My
are there for you?
my kid literally said to me the other day, I was trying to help them in the bath, and she was like, "What are you doing in here?" And I was like, "Once upon a time, I used to help you guys out around, nighttime, bath time, but I guess those days have, you know, come to a conclusion. Anyway,
Well,
I've
let's
become
hope
a
you're not a
stranger."
few, yeah, let's hope you're not a few weeks away from her asking, who are you?
I know, right? Who's that? Get out of here. Anyway, what's new with you?
Oh, what's new with me? Well, I am, as usual, exploring the user experience of being a patient at in a long treatment for this cancer diagnosis, and I finally got a break, man. I was going every day
Mm,
somewhere to
mm-hmm.
get blood drawn, to get treatment, to get
Oh my
injections
gosh.
every single day. And then they told me, and I had like made peace with this because I was like, my job now is cancer treatment. Like that's my job.
Mm-hmm.
But then they told me, you will have to come in on the weekends. And I was like,
Oh.
no. I've made my peace with a Monday through Friday job, but I have not made my peace
Ah,
with a Saturday, Sunday job.
that's
But
brutal.
turns out they figured out a way to kind of do something different. Of course, like we're weeks and weeks and weeks, months actually into this, and they
Mm-hmm.
figured out a way to like do something different. And now I basically don't have to go in at all. It's
Whoa.
crazy. Yeah. So
Okay.
I haven't been anywhere where anybody's poked me with a needle for gosh, like 6 days. It's nuts. It's
Oh my
crazy. My life's so
gosh.
different.
I bet. Oh my gosh. Having medical appointments is the pits because you have to go and sit in the waiting room
Hmm.
and, sit around all these coughing kids and stuff. I don't know if it's like that for oncology, but um, I don't know. You just feel like you're just sitting and waiting and reading the dumb magazines. And the worst is if they pipe in music or something and you're like, I don't like this radio station. And you're
Oh my
like,
gosh. So on that note, I actually heard I have a cancer pump up song. Sorry, cancer
oh,
treatment pump up song.
okay.
And I was in the waiting room and it came on as like a Muzak version and like an instrumental version. And I was
Wow.
like, whoa,
That's
this is
cool.
crazy. Um,
Nice.
but you're so right. And like maybe this is my hot tip for because obviously this is not everyone's job, but maybe this is my hot tip for folks is like I have really gotten down to a science how to provide myself with like tasks to do that are short and can be interrupted because that is exactly what medical treatment is like
Mm.
what can I do in 5 to 10 minutes that's fine if I
Mm-hmm.
get interrupted and I can pick up again when I'm now in the next stage
Ooh.
of waiting because
Oh
it's
my
all about that, right?
gosh.
It's like okay, we'll check you in. Now wait. Okay, now you're in the exam room. Now wait, and
Uh-huh.
like, oh,
Oh
now a
my
nurse is going to come in.
gosh.
Now wait again. So anyway,
This is
I
brilliant. This is
yeah.
so on the nose for me right now because I literally had someone say to me, like, you need to figure out how to maximize like those 10 or 15 minutes between meetings and get stuff done. You can't put stuff off and wait for like that perfect, span of 3 hours that's never going to materialize to start
Mm,
getting stuff done. And I'm like, that is my worst habit of
mm,
all time, is like trying to get myself in the zone and being like, if I can't get in the zone, I'm not going to bother. I can't afford that shit anymore. I have to work without being in the zone. And I hate it. I hate that feeling of, trying so hard to get like myself oriented and then getting interrupted right away. I hate it.
mhm. Yeah, but
So
there are
that's,
certain tasks that are never gonna be conducive to that, and, like, it's,
yeah.
like, real true, like, flow state stuff that takes hours to do,
Oh,
and I even say flow state, and I'm kind of like like, don't use a silly term like that, but
I
I
love
do
the flow
believe in it.
state. Oh,
Yeah, I do believe
totally.
in it.
Oh, I
And
miss it.
and anyway, I guess it's like all that stuff's gonna pile up. Yeah, you can do short things in 10 to 15 minutes and be interrupted and
Oh,
stuff, but like
teach
then
us
it all the
how.
other stuff, well, all the other stuff just piles up.
Yeah,
It's
it just
just
piles
about
up into
knowing what you
disgusting
can and can't
piles.
do. Yeah.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, we have a real special treat today. We have a special guest who is a fellow UX designer. She started her career in graphic design at Truvantis and then got into UX design for companies such as NASA Research Center, Cipher Cloud, SLI Systems, NetBase Solutions, and is currently on the AI ML team at AWS, Amazon Web Services. Please welcome our guest, Shubha Gargava.
Hey, it's a pleasure being here.
Welcome,
Hi,
welcome.
Shubha.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Shubha, tell us, the what got us here today was a comment that we were chatting and we were talking about competition on teams and love it or hate it, is competition something that is good for your team or bad for your team or good for you or bad for you? And working with competitive people can be either like really great and move you forward, or it can really suck and you're just so tell us, like, do you consider yourself to be a competitive person?
Um, over the years, I have become competitive.
Yeah.
I would say somewhat, but not there yet completely.
Well, so what does a competitive designer like? How does a competitive designer behave versus a non-competitive designer? Like, what makes somebody competitive when they're a UX designer?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, just a little bit of history. Like previously, when I mean, a non-competitive person really doesn't care about what others are doing. And and when I talk about competition, I always think of it in terms of comparison with others.
Mm.
Otherwise, I don't think anybody is there who just competes with themselves. So I would say that definitely is a characteristic where, I mean, just thinking about how I was in the past, I really didn't care what other team members were doing, or whether I was getting that big project needed for my promotion, etc. But over the years, things have changed. And so as of today, if I'm competitive, I'm definitely kind of watching out for that next big opportunity, or kind of making sure that I get visibility along with it. Also, just you know taking just keeping a track of how everybody else on the team is doing as well. So I would
Yeah.
say, yeah.
No, I mean, so I'm curious, you said something that kind of stood out for me because I was like, ooh, ding, ding, ding. You said when other designers get like better projects. Have you ever had that happen to you where somebody got a project that you wanted?
um, I would say, I mean, again, thinking in past, I mean, there's always been times where you have your eyes on something, and or obviously there's somebody in the team who's a better fit and would end up getting that, or needs better opportunities in that person. So yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I
so
think
like,
for me, it's been
mhm.
somewhat of the opposite in terms of like when I was when I've been more competitive, although maybe I just have masked it now. But like, I feel like when I was like a younger designer and I had more to prove, or maybe I was like afraid that I needed to prove something, like I feel like I was more fierce in terms of like caring about what other people thought or were doing around me. And like I had to practice not caring about that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know. That seems like, does that seem the opposite of what you're saying, Shiva?
So I see you have the reverse trajectory, right? I mean, again, in my past background, right, I've worked in big and small teams, but they've always been these startups. So I feel that in those places, I didn't kind of really, I mean, I think the team culture matters too. But as I
Mhm.
started moving to more corporate jobs, I realized that the way they have built up their incentive system is almost, um, almost pitting one against the other, because
Mm,
you have to prove yourself, you have to show some kind of output. I mean, and it's not like in small startups you don't have to, but the review process is not as intense. And so I feel that that's why it's the opposite for me.
Mhm. Do you guys have any moments where you like realized that this other designer was better than you and it stung? Because I sure do.
All of the time.
yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I was like, yeah,
Even
I think the opposite is I probably could have more like could count on one hand, whereas like the times that I felt inferior, they're just so many.
Mhm. Oh my
Very true.
gosh. Um, I mean, do you think it has made you, Shuba, like a better designer to be surrounded by good designers who are, maybe competing with each other a little bit or competing with themselves? Like, do you think it's healthy?
So I feel that is it really depends on the personality type. For me, not really, because I feel with user experience, it's discipline so centrally related to creativity, that when I'm not focusing on just like creating or beautiful stuff, but more focusing on what other is doing, I just feel that it kind of really impacts the way I'm working. So I think there have been times where I'm like, okay, let's just stop thinking about the others, just focus on my work. I don't care about that next big promotion or next big project, just enjoy the craft. So yeah.
Mhm. Oh, that's such a good mindset to like be like enjoying the project that you're in instead of thinking about the next one all the time. Or, because a lot of times I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm over this project. Like I want to wrap this project now or as
Mm,
quickly as I possibly can. And the idea of like extending it to do more, is like, oof, no, thank you. Like let's put a bow on this thing
yeah,
and move on. Because I don't necessarily think always adding more time adds more value on certain projects.
agreed.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Yeah. Well, in that respect, like do you get to pick your like have you gotten to pick your projects or are you usually handed something?
So really, I think different managers have different techniques, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
know there are managers previously who kind of micromanage, so they were very like down to the very single detail. They'll say, okay, do this project and not that one. Maybe they're just provide input, etc. And then I've had managers who are like very top level, and they kind of just say, choose whatever you want, which I think it gives which obviously creates that problem among team members then, because everybody is pining for that next big golden
Mhm.
project, right? But then
Mhm.
the third category I've seen, and very rarely managers do, but good managers do, is they really focus on your career plan, and they
Mhm.
chart out a path for you, and based on that provide you projects. So this would be great for this example, and so this key
Mhm.
factor where you're lacking or you don't have opportunity. So yeah, those are the three types I've seen in general. What
Mhm.
about you both? Have you come across anything else other than these three?
Meg, what about you?
I made me think of times when you can kind of tell when people maybe don't want to be on a project, but like they don't want to come forward and just be
And
very
just
transparent about it. And so you'll hear, be like, oh, well, maybe this is really in a different, domain or in a different area. And I'm
Hmm.
not sure that I should be the person to like work on this. Or or oh, so and so has a lot better knowledge of that than I do. Like
Yeah.
that kind of like way of trying to maybe move off of a project. But in terms of getting on a project that you want to be on, I don't know if like I've ever been like, ooh, that's the one I really want to be on, or if I even know like that's the one that'll like get me the most visibility. I don't know if I'm like in tune enough for that, like intuitive enough
Hmm.
for that. But I think I know sometimes what projects I don't want to be on.
Yeah. And I mean, have you guys ever turned down a project and said like, I can't do that one or I'm not going to do it?
I have, and it's maybe gone a little bit better in the moment than I had expected. But then like maybe like weeks later, it ends up maybe like in my well, in some experiences I've had like coming back to me anyway. And it just was really discouraging because if you're really adamant that like a project you don't want to be on for whatever reasons, like and like you have that win in the short term and you think you've kind of like made your point and made your case, like it, it's almost like in those times it actually ended up just being like dormant and then it just came back weeks later to me anyway. So
Yeah. It
discouraging
just
for
circled
sure.
around. You just basically
Yeah.
put it off and let it take a lap and then come back to you. And then Shiva, what about you? Have you ever turned down a project?
I generally have a problem saying no, but I've
Hmm.
done projects half-heartedly.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, turning down it gets really hard, really. If you have everybody, if you have a big team and everybody is competitive, I think then it gets really hard to turn down a project because then, you know, I've often also seen, and this is always true for like really good designers, you give them a small thing but they end up making it so big. Even, I mean, whether it gets implemented or not is not
Yeah.
really true, but because they're just like, especially A performers, right? And I'm not like one of those, but I've seen that like they turn anything into such a fantastic thing and you're like, oh my god,
Mm,
and then you're like, oh, okay, this was given to me, I could have potentially done this. But
yeah.
so it's, but I don't, again, yeah, grass is greener on the other side, so I have a problem saying no. But yeah, I'd like to perfect that art of saying no and saying no, this is not the type of project I want to do, I don't have the
Hmm.
skill set, and just like give it to the next person.
What, like, Shuba, what makes you, like you mentioned, you've done some projects half-heartedly. I mean, I think we can all relate to that. What makes you really excited about a project if you do get handed something or there's something you learn about and you're like, I want to be on that project? Like, what is it usually that gets you excited about that?
Oh, so I think within AI ML, I'm just I'm so fortunate, there's such new things happening. It's the complexity and the technical challenges, because there's no, especially for the projects where there's been no previous precedence, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
something to do from scratch, which nobody ever has done or thought about, is really challenging. And I like that kind of strategic work, rather than just, just change the color of this button, or like,
Mm-hmm.
can you do a functioning prototype for this one? I'm like, yeah, you can do
Mm-hmm.
that 15, 20 times, 100 times maybe, but 101th time you're like, no. But so yeah, I think just technical complexity and ability to problem solve something that hasn't been done before,
Yeah.
would be my top two
Yeah.
criteria. I'm curious to know about you too. What drives you to pick a project?
Meg, what about you?
Mm, my like immediate response in my head, and then I had to consider whether or not I wanted to say it on a podcast,
I know, I'm thinking the same thing.
was
I'm like, should I say what I really think?
I think a big percentage of the pie is the people that are on it. And if I've
Oh
worked
yeah.
with them before,
Hmm.
had good experiences, know that I can, like make a decent headway. Like we don't have to build rapport or get on the same page or anything like from just a social or like working perspective. I think that makes it's a big part of it for me. I think because that part of it is hard for me, but I think that's why it's such a big piece of the attraction when it's a good group and a good like we've had success before together.
Mhm.
Like I think that's a big part of it for sure.
That's a great
Mhm.
Jessamine,
point.
Jessamine, what are you
Yeah.
thinking about that
I
you're not
mean,
willing to say?
my answer is like, do I like the PM? I mean, that's number one. If I like the PM, I'll do whatever they want. Literally, I will follow them down any road. If I don't
And
like the
so
PM, I'm just like, oh, great, all right, here we go. What do you want? And it's just not as fun. If I'm talking to a robot or, somebody who has no personality or isn't interested in like getting to know me beyond, you know, like a very, you know, what would you say, like shallow kind of conversation. And they don't bother to say like, hey, how was your weekend or whatever. I could care less about them and their project. I mean, it
Mhm.
is 1000% personalities and team culture, team spirit for me. It's not
Mhm.
it's not the subject matter. I'm so different than you, Shuba. I mean, like, you're like, oh, I want unfamiliar projects, and I'm like, oh God, no, please, like, like, don't make me do something new or weird. Like, just let me like do the things I already know how to do. That's so pathetic and sad, but that's like kind of true. That I think maybe right now because of where I am in my life and I have so much responsibility at home that I'm like, oh Lord, if something's really murky, my biggest fear is churn and that I'm going to be stuck in like a whirlwind of churn and I can't please anybody no matter how many iterations we do. And so I feel like if I have the rapport with the PM, I can be like, look, let's do this. Okay, sound good. Okay, done, and we can knock it out.
Yeah, no, but both of you, I mean, that's really, really important. I mean, you might get the best, most challenging, or, like, or the other side of it, you might get a really, known project. But at the same time, the team makeover of the team is really important. I mean, there are chances of succeeding in both and failing if
Yeah.
the team is not good. So, yeah, I think that's a
I
great
f-
point.
yeah, and I feel like not enough PMs know that, like about
Mm.
about how we
About
work, and
themselves
Yeah.
that
yes,
like
about
it
themselves.
matters.
Yeah,
It
it
matters how
told.
you are like
Yeah.
the rapport you have with your team and like I think because a lot of people they look up, right? It's like, well, how do the people above me,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
perceive me? So I'm going to be really nice and cool and chatty with
And
those
they
people.
aren't, yeah. And they aren't
Yeah.
our direct bosses, right? Like they're not
Mhm.
doing team leadership or team growth or like that kind of stuff in a traditional sense. Like most of the PMs I work with or have worked with in the past, like they don't have direct reports.
Mhm.
They are individual contributors. And so like they don't understand, I think, or maybe a gap there is that um they are developing a team. They are
Yes.
for a short
Yes. And
period
they
of
don't
time,
realize
like
it sometimes.
they totally. I feel like that's definitely something that not enough of them know that they need
Sometimes
to
I want to
do
shake
or
them
how
by
to
the
do it.
shoulders and be like, "You're in charge, bro.
Yeah.
You're in charge. Like
That's
lead us,
helpful.
dude."
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
they haven't woken up and realized that yet. Um
I
gosh.
want to
So
I want to ask about sorry, I want to ask about something about this competitive thing before we move on to the next thing, because when you mentioned like being in AI and machine learning, like it seems like just such a hot spot, to be in, and like that would be something that a lot of people would be very interested in, and competing against each other to even break into as a domain. And I've never worked on anything quite as like interesting or cutting edge like that. So I guess I wonder, the question I would have is, do you think that competitiveness to get into that domain, or a more popular or more current domain, um uh like that competition to get into it like spills over once you are there to like a more competitive environment?
Ah, interesting. I think to be honest, Meg, I've seen people who've been in the domain or who are just starting out, and they're still like, they're not competitive at all. They're just focusing on their own work. So
Mhm.
I don't know if domain per se, if the, I mean, if this domain brings out the competitiveness. It
Mhm.
I think it's more to do with personalities and
Mhm.
where you want to be and how fast you want to get there.
Mhm.
That's my interpretation, but it could be true in other places. I mean, I don't have a good answer, so to say.
Well, shall we move on to our topic about the seats at the table?
Ooh. So yes, I am curious, Shuba, have you ever felt like you were on a team or a project where you did not have a seat at the table? And if that happened to you, what did you do?
Oh my God. All the time.
All the time? Oh
All the
God,
time. You know,
really?
yeah, whenever you get into a new team, it's always like that. And I have to tell you this. So, one of the teams I was working with, there were 50 people, 50 to 60 people on that team. And, it was like 2 weeks in. And I kind of send an invite out to everybody asking them to join a UX Sync meeting, which is weekly. And I sent this invite out maybe about 15 to 20 days back. I
Hmm.
perhaps got a response back from maybe like 7 people, and out of those 50 or 60 folks, only two, I think 2 or 3 people finally managed
Ouch.
to attend. Yes, that is
Ooh.
how I started in one of the teams. So it's like and it the title was UX Sync, so it's not like it was because I was new to the team or something. It was just that the value of UX is just not seen, at least
Hmm.
not immediately. So this is
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's, and I've seen other designers too. I mean, this frustration, especially, and I feel as in technical spaces it gets even worse, is as soon as people kind of engineering, it's so engineering driven. And this is not to throw shade on engineering team, because I've worked with awesome engineering folks as well,
Hmm.
but mostly where technicality is really high, usually engineering team is leading. And
Hmm.
so UX is like an afterthought. So things
Hmm.
like this, I'm sure both of you must have heard. Like, can you just mock this up, or can you just like, where are the mocks? Like, we're reduced down to just like these
Mhm.
visuals we have to produce, and there's no other value you can bring.
Yeah,
Yikes.
totally. I've
You don't come in
that
early enough
definitely
to make a difference.
resonates.
Hmm.
Yeah. But in terms of how it can be changed, and I think my manager once told, and I think that kind of really stuck with me. He said that you can't expect to get a seat at the table if you haven't earned it. And I know that's a vicious circle though, because how can you earn
Mm.
it if you don't have a seat at the table? How do you earn trust to prove it? But there are some things which might work. And I feel that off late that has really helped me. So, you find the things that your team is struggling with the most. And I think most probably if engineering team is leading or taking charge of things, customer is where you won't have enough information about, or so things like you can do research, or areas where a team really needs vital help, and it might mean that you have to stretch out a little bit and do things you've never done before.
Mm.
Maybe doing that, improving value could be one way. But yeah, have you two come across this situation and done anything differently?
I've talked like in multiple podcast episodes about how I do not like creating nice looking decks for other people on my team. But this is the one situation where I will do it, is when
I
I
see.
know it's because we're having some sort of exchange of like abilities or reciprocity, and like I'm trying to prove myself or something along those lines, so that later on I can be asked to be at
Yeah.
the meeting or something along those lines. um
Yeah.
but yeah, that's like that is what comes to mind, is like you are right, like there are some times where you maybe will do things outside of the job description, or even things that you maybe don't like doing
Oh yeah.
to kind of like grease the wheel or whatever. So,
Yeah.
Jessamine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's when you talked about like earning your seat at the table. I mean, I would say that I've done pretty much everything I can think of to try to earn my seat at the table, which is like, menial tasks, like
Mm.
updating,
Yeah.
updating
Yeah.
docs, updating tickets, grooming backlogs, holding people's hands, answering questions on Slack, any sort of little thing that I can think of that I can, crumbs I can sweep up under the table, like basically I'll try to do it. Because the thing is that I've actually found that at first I really was like, this is going to sound crazy, or maybe it's not going to sound that crazy, but I was like, I can't learn these things. It's too hard. It's too complicated. Like, I'm not technical, so I can't learn this stuff. So I'm not going to bother, and I had like a shield up, like a intellectual shield where, because there's a lot of the stuff that I work on is really technical, and I'm not the end user and never will be. And so I sort of feel like, well, I can't really relate, I'll do the best I can. I'll get enough knowledge to sort of do the project, but I won't like let myself immerse too much. And I think that thinking really hurt me for a long time because, coming up in art and design, you're really walled off. Maybe things are changing now with like the STEM and STEAM movements and stuff like that. But I feel like in high school and college and grad school, studying art, studying design, I was totally insulated from tech and, science, math, engineering, all that stuff was like totally invisible to me. So for a long time, I just thought, that's not me. That's not who I am. I can't do those things. I can't learn those things. So I'm not going to bother to try. And it's only through like work and being exposed to like really technical topics and being surrounded by engineers and sort of, being on maybe friendlier teams where I've like slowly let some of that stuff seep in to my walls and like let myself absorb it and been like, okay, well, I can't write, I can't use the command line to fire off API commands, but I can read the documentation and understand what an API is and what an API does. So I've got that going for me. I can read, and
Nice.
like, yeah, and
Yeah.
honestly, if you just read, like I'll do stuff like this. Like when I first started on my current team, I used to get all the support tickets and I'd be like, oh my God, my inbox is exploding because they just get copied to the whole team. And I set up a filter and filtered them out for like the first year. And then I forgot why, but for some reason, I think I was like messing around with my filters and I managed to unfilter them and they started flooding back into my inbox. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm such a dummy. These tickets are gold. This is gold. This is customers complaining and reaching out to support and here, this thing doesn't work. That thing doesn't work. I can't understand how to do this. Why is this failing? Why is this broken? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like literally sitting on top of like a mountain of customer anecdotes I can access at any time. They're like sitting in my inbox. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's that kind of thing where I guess I like the information's all around me if I let myself, you know what I mean? Like let it in. And like I can get educated on those technical topics if I just let myself be exposed to it and get past some of the jargon. I think a lot of times the jargon turns me off. So I'm like, oh, somebody like recently, for example, somebody's talking about prefixes and suffixes. And I'm like, oh shit. Every time they say the word prefix or suffix, I literally have to stop, like close my eyes and think, which one goes where? What is a suffix? What the fuck is a suffix? Where does it go? And I'm like, oh, and that's my reaction to anything scientific, technical, or whatever, is that like, oh, but I'm like, okay, suffix comes, it's not the pre, it must be the post. So it must come at the end. And I'm like, if people could hear my internal dialogue, they'd be like, oh man, what a dummy we are working with today. But That's just the truth. And anyway, so I'm just like, okay, well, what does that mean? And I've kind of gotten over asking dumb questions. I ask them all the time. So yeah.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, even though it's initially might be difficult, it's good to get to the same level as where the engineering team is, so you can, kind of, and A, be at their level, and B, be able to kind of then earn their trust because they understand that you understand. That's pretty cool. Yeah. But I have to ask you though, for me, it kind of gets tiring though. It's like constantly proving myself for every single
Mm-hmm.
team. It's like the entire culture is missing. And you
Yeah.
think with design thinking and with all these big UX leaders kind of coming up and, kind of almost like, selling the value of UX, you'd think that the
Mm-hmm.
teams would understand by now. But it just seems like such an afterthought sometimes. It's just it's a constant battle, and it's like
Yeah.
you never feel that you're there ever. For you take one step forward, then two step backwards. So
Yeah.
to me, that is really frustrating, and I don't have a good answer. And it's just this tendency of UX is just, yeah. And I feel that is also reflected because when you have layoffs, you'd see that the UX folks are the first ones to leave the
Mm,
team
yeah.
because they don't value it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. I have an anecdote about that, which is that, like, in in a layoff in the past that I was adjacent to, the engineers were given more time. Like, they ultimately were laid off, which, that's just as sad. But the UX designers were, like, asked to go home that day, and, like, that was it. That was their last day, the day that
Whoa.
they were told. Yeah.
That's sad.
And,
It
like,
is.
yeah, and it just kind of goes to show you that, like, there's not a lot of, like, there's just a very from up on high, there can be a very different perception of, like, who has value and who doesn't.
Hmm. Yeah. And you think that it would be a no-brainer for the industry to understand that ultimately it affects the adoption of your product. Yes, you can release that feature without having a UX designer on the team, but the quality of it would be so unusable that it'll be just a
Mm-hmm.
no-go right from the beginning. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just where are you shifting the burden from, and it's surprising for me that so many industry, like CEOs and CTOs would ever kind of really think that, yeah, engineering department is enough. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as you can clearly see, I feel really strongly about this. There's only so much value you can teach, but if, beyond, you can't, I don't, or at least I haven't come across any techniques where you can fundamentally change the way people think, even after you've earned their trust on multiple occasions.
I guess I would ask you, Shuba, can you give our listeners any advice if they're on a tough team right now, or a competitive environment, or a toxic team, or anything like that? What advice would you give a designer out there who's struggling?
So I think for competitiveness, what has worked for me, again, is that just ending the comparison bit. Just
Mm-hmm.
focus on your own work. If there's there's enough for everybody to
Mm-hmm.
go and prove your value. And I think this, I mean, everybody knows this, right? I mean, everybody is different and they bring different strengths. So work on your strengths and not what other people are doing. So I think that has helped me really kind of focus on what I'm doing and kind of be good at. Um, and second, and I think people, and there'll always be people who are extremely competitive, will try to bring you down or will say things that kind of just, just
Mm-hmm.
decimate you in meetings just because they don't support you. And it's fine, it's fine for these people to be around, but you can develop a culture where this culture of collaboration exists, and soon you'll find that you'll be in a group of people where everybody is collaborative, and this other person who's competitive will get excluded from that group, so that person has no other choice but to be part of this collaborative environment. So yeah, I think that kind of, I've seen it happen multiple times, and that
Yeah.
strategy works.
Okay. So like focus on yourself, number one. And then like the second strategy, I think I didn't quite grok it. Like,
Oh, yeah. So sorry, I just mean that you can build a culture of collaboration, just with people who are at your level and who are not
yeah,
competitive, you can collaborate with them and show what collaboration can bring to the team.
okay. Be like a collaboration model. Like open
Yes.
up. Open
Yes,
up.
that's a good way
Okay.
of putting it. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Awesome. Well, Shubha, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really awesome to talk to you and hear your thoughts on this topic. I love it.
Thank you so much for letting me speak here. It was wonderful connecting with both of you.
Yeah. All right. If you need help with your UX career or just some sympathy, please write to us at survivingux@gmail.com.
See you next time. Surviving UX is hosted and edited by Jessamine Edwards and Meg Kramer. Our theme music is, among other things, the on-hold music for Cisco phones, Opus Number 1 by Tim Carlton and Derek Deal. If either of us have finally earned a seat at the table, you'll hear about it on upcoming episodes of Surviving UX.